Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all...
We can learn so much from the misery and the mistakes of our loved ones. I saw the tragedy of staying stuck in a marriage, miserable for both my dad and my mother. I saw the tragedy of my mother becoming severely addicted to sugar shit as a slow poison substitute for hot sex and romance she yearned for with some man. My mother was my all-time closest friend, and I dedicate today's program to my dear mother, Lillian. My mother and I had many strong arguments, many serious conflicts, but no one will ever love me more than she did. Probably no one will ever love me as much as she did. My mother died at 74 in 1982, almost 43 years ago. My mother enjoyed the TV comedy that had a good message, All in the Family, with Archie and Edith Bunker. My mother loved beautiful, heart-touching music. My mother supported marriage between whites and blacks. But sadly, my mother did not live long enough to see her oldest grandson, Daniel, marry the black woman, Bonita, and to see their 3 children, now adults. My mother loved to give to other people. Giving was her habit. Giving was my mother's high in life. My mother taught me to stand up for what is fair and right. She was glad to see herself in her wheelchair on television news at a protest demonstration when she was 71, when she was with me here in Albuquerque. My mother expressed her deep feelings, sadness, love, anger. My mother was smart on many things. She was a very honest, conscientious secretary in our family's business. My mother remembered many telephone numbers, and like millions of women, she yearned for passionate romance, but was not in love with her husband, my dad, for most of their 48-year marriage until she died. When my mother married at 26 years old, she weighed 98 pounds, very lean, very active physically on the Illinois farm where she was born, the farm where she lived all her life, the farm where I grew up. Until I was born, when she was 38, she drove tractors and trucks. She milked cows. At 26 years old, weighing 98 pounds, how could my mother have imagined weighing 270 pounds in her 50s? At 26, weighing 98 pounds, how could my mother have imagined having huge legs filled with fluid because of heart and kidney diseases? My mother loved children, but she hated having children stare at her huge legs. She wore long dresses to hide her huge legs. She did not go to doctors for many years because she was afraid they would find cancer. Her mother, my granny, died of cancer in her liver and colon. Walking a short distance became work for my mother. She no longer washed most of her body. She could no longer wipe her ass right. I was ashamed. She was ashamed. My mother sat in a chair for years to sleep at night, slumped over because her back hurt her bad when she got up if she would lie down at night. Maybe caused by the kidney disease that finally killed her. For many years, my mother got almost no sunshine. And sadly, like millions of people, she ate almost no raw greens. Besides many bananas, my mother ate almost no raw food. My mother and my dad were miserable cellmates in the prison of marriage until she died. And much of the time, it was emotional war between them. If I had been my dad, I do not know how I could have coped being married to my mother. And if I had been my mother, I do not know how I could have coped being married to my dad. I really, really wish they had parted peacefully or had never married. They might have been good friends if not married to each other, living under the same roof. Marriage harms, marriage destroys many, many friendships. My mother said about my dad and my brother, they think I don't know anything because she was a woman. After I told her soon after I first had sex with any man when I was 31, my mother feared losing her closeness with me if I would have one longtime companion. Because she had lost her closeness with my brother when he got married at 20. I have only one brother, no sisters. And when he was almost 11 years old, I was born. And after that, my mother got fatter and fatter until she was 270 pounds in her 50s when I was a teenager. How did my brother feel seeing his very active, lean mother become so fat, trapped in her sick body? Did my brother subconsciously blame me? I don't know. She got fat after I was born. Mother deeply loved my brother and me, and the only poem my mother ever wrote was about my brother. I don't know if my brother realizes to this day how much she loved him, how much she wanted to stay close to him after he got married, to have heart-to-heart talks with him. My brother is now 90 years old and lives on his family farm 1 mile down the road back in Illinois, 1 mile down the road from where he and I grew up. I wonder if my brother realized what he missed in closeness with my mother. I never remember seeing my mother run. I never remember seeing my mother even walk long distances. She was an excellent secretary, many years, long hours in the office, often from 8 or 9 in the morning until 6 or 7 or later in the evening, but very little exercise. And of course, the fatter she got, the less she felt like moving her body. And for many years there in the office, she had no indoor toilet. So she held her shit. She held her piss. And that is very, very unhealthy. I do not know how I would have coped, trapped in her sick, fat body. She hated going to our country church on Easter, seeing other women dressed in new spring clothes. How did my mother feel seeing neighbor women walking miles for exercise, neighbor women gardening, and she no longer able? Her body became the enemy, a torture chamber. Even though my mother at heart was young, she was full of life, she was passionate, but trapped in her sick, fat body. I think my mother and dad seldom, if ever, had sex after I was born. My mother yearned for passionate romance for over 30 years. Like millions, she was starved for hot romantic sex. So sadly, my mother became severely addicted to sugar shit at night before sleeping. She and I both were severely addicted to slow poison sugar shit for years. Ice cream, cake, cookies, candy, when I was a kid and in my 20s. But I saw the hell she suffered, and I woke up. I changed. I eat no sugar shit. My sweets are lots of fresh, whole fruit, especially apples. Not fruit juice, because we need the fiber of the whole fruit. My mother used to tell me when she had me do many things for her that she could no longer do, I would not ask you if I could do it myself. She said, someday you will understand. I have learned so much from the misery and the mistakes of both my mother and my dad. I have treasured sex and romance with certain men, but I'm so glad I never got married to any man. I speak about the suffering of people being fat. Yes, instead of just saying heavy or overweight, I refuse to dance around the very serious problem of being fat. If I can help anyone avoid getting fat, or if I can help anyone lose their fat and get lean and healthy and to enjoy their body until they die, I'm glad. I want to tell it like it is because I saw what fat did to my closest, all-time closest friend, my mother. We can wake up. We can change. And I have no desire to get married to any man on earth. I do not want to add 1 pound of fat to my body. Every pound of fat, more than our ideal lean and healthy body weight, puts more strain on our knees, our ankles, our hips, our back, our heart, our lungs, our liver, our kidneys. We can learn so much from the misery and mistakes of our loved ones. And I urge you, learn from my many mistakes in life. And anyone who wants to lose fat will lose fat by eating only raw plant foods. Only raw plant foods. Greens, seeds, nuts, vegetables, fruit, medicinal herbs, no cooked food, no grain, no meat, no dairy, no booze, nothing containing added sugar or artificial sweetener. And I know of a man who lost 130 pounds, 130 pounds by eating only raw plant foods. What does it do to your soul when you kill another human? A World War II veteran who was a sharpshooter back in the 1950s told how he had daily nightmares remembering the faces of young German soldiers he saw in the crosshair telescopic scope just before he exploded their faces and heads. He could not get rid of those images, people that he had murdered. A Congressional Medal of Honor recipient told his son that if he ever got into battle, to allow himself to be killed rather than live the hell of the memory of killing another human being. The U.S. government officially kidnapped 60,000 Native American children for 150 years, 1819 to 1969. The U.S. government stole Native American children from their tribes, their families. The U.S. government forced them to go to boarding schools. Why? To rob these children of their native languages, their native ways and culture. And how many of these children were beaten by the white people in charge? How many of these native children were raped? How many cried themselves to sleep, homesick for their mother and dad and sisters and brothers? How many of these native children in boarding schools learned to hate themselves for not being white? How many of them ran away? How many of them never learned how to be a good father or a good mother because of being put in these boarding schools? How many of these children later became addicted to booze and to other drugs to forget the hell they had suffered as children in those boarding schools? How many became mentally ill for life? How many of these children, as they grew up, were duped and conned, baited and recruited by their oppressor, the U.S. government, to later become U.S. soldiers to murder Native people in other nations? How many of these Native American soldiers had been so poisoned as children to believe the white people's God approved of U.S. wars abroad? How many of these Native American soldiers came home in body bags? How many returned as alcoholics, wanting to forget forever the atrocities they committed to other human beings who were not white? One of the worst evil sentences in the whole Bible is, "He who spares the rod hates his son." Proverbs 13:24. Using pain and violence on your children's precious bodies to make them live right and act right? Crazy, evil bullshit. And some of the worst evil advice ever written in the world about how to raise your children. Again, Proverbs 13:24 says, "He who spares the rod hates his son." Beating and bruising your children shows you as parents loving your children? Insanely evil advice. How many white cops, how many black cops, how many brown cops who beat and murder people were beaten as kids by church-going parents who believed that damn evil sentence in the Bible, "He who spares the rod hates his son"? How many people in prison for murder were brutally beaten by their parents? How many alcoholics, how many wife beaters, how many heroin, cocaine, and meth addicts have scars on their bodies and horrific memories of parents beating them with hands, straps, yardsticks, belts, tree branches? How many kids learn to take the evil abuse showing no tears, no feelings, in order not to give their father or their mother the satisfaction of the kid showing pain? How many of those adults beaten as kids cannot show deep feelings of love and sorrow because they learned to hide their feelings when they were being beaten? Family and friends may think these adults are cold, do not feel. But we must not judge a book by its cover. These adults learned as kids to cover up and bury their true feelings while father or mother or some other adult beat them. Imagine if the Bible had said, the father and mother who give lots of strong, affectionate hugs to their sons and daughters from birth to death love them. Plenty of warm, sincere hugs and touches lifelong. With much help, adults severely abused as kids can slowly heal. With much help, parents who beat their kids, many parents who had parents who beat them, can wake up and apologize to their adult children, they abused as kids. They can ask for forgiveness from those adult children. We can change. And for most of us, forgiveness is not a one-time thing. We need to forgive ourselves and others whenever the memory comes. Many years ago, a black preacher visited me here in Albuquerque. He was married to a woman, but he was desperate for sex with a man. I did not have sex with him. Most men, most white men, most black men, most brown men, I am not sexually attracted to. Some brown men, some black men, some white men, I'm strongly sexually attracted to. I connected the black preacher to a close gay friend of mine, and they had sex. And one of the best kept secrets worldwide is the millions of bisexual and bi-curious men who love sex and romance with one or more women, but they want also sex with men. I remember my very attractive dear friend Eric. Eric sold at the flea market, very hot and sexy. And he was shirt-free. He wore a hard hat like men in the music group YMCA. Eric had several children by different women. He had sex as a youth with many men also. And I wonder if Eric knew how many children he fathered. I well understand he enjoyed sex, but how much better if Eric had always used birth control with women, unless he was ready, he was able and willing to be a good father to the child. Eric and I never had sex, and sadly, Eric died some years ago from drugs. I condemn murders by violent gangs in the United States, but the bloody, awful truth is that since October 7th, 2023, President Biden, most of Congress, every U.S. federal income taxpayer are responsible for the murders of many, many thousands of Palestinian kids, women, men in Gaza. Far more victims of the United States in Gaza than people in the United States killed by violent gangs here since October 7th, 2023. And I called our senators, Heinrich and Lujan, and our Congresswoman Stansberry many times in Albuquerque and in D.C. to oppose U.S. support for Israel's evil genocide in Gaza. I have paid no U.S. federal income tax, not one damn bloody penny, for U.S. wars for 46 years so far. U.S.-backed Israel has murdered about 200 medical workers in Gaza, about 400 journalists in Gaza, and many thousands of Palestinian bodies, men, women, and kids, are rotting under the rubble of destroyed homes, schools, hospitals. The flies, the dogs feast on those decaying, rotting bodies of our sisters and brothers in Gaza. Many thousands, besides the over 46,000 Palestinians murdered, that the Palestinian government has said, many thousands buried under the rubble. The Israeli government used billions of dollars of weapons that Biden gave Israel, and weapons from Germany and from other nations. A 5-year-old Palestinian boy whose both hands were destroyed asked his dad, "When I get big, will I grow hands?" Sadly, Biden is a war criminal with the blood on his hands of many, many, many thousands of Palestinian kids, women, and men. Biden is a Roman Catholic. He says he believes in God. But many Palestinians pray desperately for help, but no God answered their prayers. I do not believe in a fair, loving parent God. I used to. I wish we had a fair, loving parent God who would help all people on earth who pray for help, but it just ain't so. Why swallow and spread religious lies and bullshit, as I did many, many years ago as a sincere Christian preacher? A woman wrote, "My father-in-law used to say, I know that smoking is not good for me, but I'd rather enjoy my time on earth and die a little earlier than deprive myself of the things I enjoy." She says, unfortunately, Dad did not get very much more enjoyment because he had to have bypass surgery. And then he needed his arteries stripped so his brain could get proper blood supply. And then they stripped his femoral arteries. Not once, but twice. He continued to smoke one cigarette after another, and soon his leg got gangrene. There was not enough artery to save, so they amputated his leg almost to his hip. And Dad's other leg began to lose circulation. His coronary bypasses were clotting. She says, fortunately, he died before they did any further amputations. Through all of this, she says, Dad never deprived himself of the pleasure of smoking, but he deprived his family of having him around to celebrate his 60th birthday. Marriage means promising each other to be in love and to make love with only each other until death do us part. And many questions for a man and a woman, or for two women, or two men wanting to marry. Many questions for you to consider. Do you both want kids? How many? If one of you does not want kids, what then? Do you agree on how to raise those kids? How differently were you each raised by your parents? Are you opposed to hitting and cursing kids? Are you both religious? Same religion? If one of you is not religious, will you raise your kids in religion? If different religions, how will you decide which religion for your kids? Do you both know and feel loved by the other person's family? And when you wrong each other, do you apologize? Do you forgive? Or do you hold grudges? Many couples fight like crazy over money. Does one of you enjoy living simply? Does the other want to buy crap that nobody needs? If so, are you going to have separate money accounts? Do you want to live in a small place or in a mansion? In a low-income community with people of all colors, or in a high-income, mostly white community? Does one of you need and want much more quiet and peace with less television, radio, music? Do you stay up late or get up early? Many visits from friends? A very neat, always picture-perfect house, or a house that feels relaxed and lived in? Many questions for two men, two women, or man and woman who are getting married. Does one of you eat only healthy plant foods and the other mostly junk? Do you drink booze? Do you use illegal drugs? Are you truthful with each other? Do you lie about anything to each other? Are you open and honest about your past? Is there anything you're afraid to tell your partner? Anything about your partner's beliefs, feelings, and past that you're afraid to ask? Do you both enjoy warmly hugging, alone and in public? Are you emotionally constipated in showing feelings? Do you both have long-time, close friends? Are either of you very insecure and jealous? Do you welcome personal questions? Are you committed to live fairly in our world family of 8 billion sisters and brothers? Or are you addicted to the American dream, which is a nightmare disaster for the world's hungry and homeless millions, and for all life on earth in this climate crisis? Are you strongly sexually attracted to each other? If sex is not important for you both now, what if someday that changes for one of you? If passionate sex is very important for you, how often? Do you tell each other what turns you on in making love and what turns you off? My close friend Tom, a preacher, married a woman. And years later, he realized his strong attraction to certain men. He and his wife stayed together until he died, but she never fully accepted his sex with a man. My friend Beverly knew before she married Frank his attraction to men. So much better for both Beverly and Frank for her to know in advance. And often one partner in a male-female marriage has not realized, has not accepted his or her attraction to the same gender before getting married to a person of the other gender. If you see or you meet someone you feel sexually attracted to, do you feel free to tell your spouse? Are you more attracted to some other persons than your spouse? Do you both enjoy cuddling together, naked and sober? Can you both argue vigorously and still feel deeply connected? Are you turning off much of yourself to stay together? If you're starving romantically, are you turning to booze or gambling? If you're starving romantically in your relationship, are you hogging down junk food, fighting over stupid stuff, becoming a workaholic? Are you free from all shame, all guilt about being naked and about your sex together? Are you changing how and how much you travel, how much you consume and pollute to slow the climate crisis catastrophe? Are you nearly the same on politics or very, very different? What about on racism, white supremacy, justice, police brutality, U.S. wars? Do you feel much the same, or are you very different? Do you prefer to sleep in the same bed or separate beds? Before making a solemn vow to being romantic only with each other until one of you dies, try living together for 6 months or a whole year to see how your relationship works. How do you talk about your past girlfriends or your past boyfriends? If someday you both divorce, do you refuse to blame it all on the other as a devil? Or do you want a peaceful divorce? If you become severely disabled with dementia or paralysis, much less capable of sex, do you want your partner to enjoy sex with someone else? I treasure hot, affectionate sex and passionate romance with certain lean, healthy men who have no shame, no guilt about sex with men. But I do not want to marry any man, no matter how attracted I am to him, no matter how much I'm in love with him. I can be deeply in love with several men at the same time. So I would feel trapped. I would feel caged, suffocating in marriage to just one man. I refuse to make this promise I would soon regret. I aim to tell the truth and not to make foolish promises I would want to break. If you're just coming out as a gay or bisexual person or trans person or non-binary person? Do you know any straight friend you're quite sure will accept your being gay or bisexual or trans or non-binary? If so, tell that person. If you're living with your parents and you know they would reject you, you may need to wait until you move out to tell them you're gay or bisexual or trans or non-binary. And search for gay, bi, trans, non-binary friends who will accept you for who you are. Search for straight friends who already have out gay, bi, trans, non-binary friends. When our birth family rejects us for who we are, we need to form a new family while still keeping our heart open if someday, in months or years, some of our birth family open their hearts to us. It can happen, but don't hold your breath. When I told my friend Patty Quintana in the late 1970s, I am gay, she told me she knew from the first day I met her in 1970, years earlier. When I told my friend Lupi Alalde in the late 1970s, I am gay, he told me he knew from the first day I met him in 1969. I never had sex with any man until late 1976, but often friends know someone is gay or bi or trans or non-binary years before that person knows or fully accepts who he or she is. We need to move our bodies as much as we're able until the day we die, because too much sitting on our ass kills us. Too much sitting on our ass is as deadly as smoking cigarettes. And one of the many reasons to get rid of fat is so we can feel more like moving our bodies if we're not carrying many extra pounds. Gardening, daily chores in our homes. We need to keep moving our bodies as much as we're able until the day we die. Walking many blocks, especially on beautiful days. Bouncing or jumping on a small trampoline. Dancing alone or with a partner, at home or in public. We need to keep moving our bodies as much as we are able until the day we die. And men, be careful how you lift heavy stuff. Men, more than women, can develop hernias in our lower abdomens near our cock if we lift too much weight with our belly muscles instead of mainly with our backs and our legs. For many years, I had two small hernias, one on each side. And many years ago, I showed my hernias to a surgeon who visited me where I lived. And he said, if they do not bother you, leave them alone. And I was so glad to hear that, because I fear surgeries like hell. I fear knives cutting on my body. But since the surgeon saw my small hernias, a couple of years ago, one hernia has become much larger. No pain yet, but who knows when I might have pain. If we have hernias already, very important never to get constipated. Would we sign any legal papers if we did not read, if we did not understand all the small print in the document? And sadly, millions of people do not read the list of ingredients in their processed crap food in cans, bottles, packages, boxes. We're fools if we trust those companies to protect our health. The companies spend millions of dollars to research which ingredients to addict us to, which tastes. Our health be damned. They want to make us junk food addicts. Why? To make millions of dollars for those companies. I eat no processed junk food in bottles, cans, boxes, packages. I want to stay as healthy as I can as long as I live. We're all going to die. But I do my damnedest to feel good until I die. The list of ingredients starts with the biggest ingredient, and companies often use many different words in the list for the slow poison sugar. Why? To deceive us on how much sugar is in that item. Sugar is the gateway drug. Sugar is slow poison. Sugar causes and worsens 50 bad health conditions. And added chemicals often have big names we do not understand. If the two of you both enjoy your marriage, or if the two of you are passionate lovers, not married, or if the two of you are very close friends, kissing each other for at least 6 seconds, or hugging each other for 20 seconds or more, releases the hormone oxytocin, the same hormone that bonds babies with their mothers. A kiss of at least 6 seconds or a hug of 20 seconds or more builds trust between the persons and calms down the fear centers of our brains. Do you have secrets about yourself you have never told anyone? Our secrets can make us sick. Our secrets can keep us sick. I enjoy opening my life to you on this program and in my conversations, my letters, my articles. Our secrets can make us sick, keep us sick. Do you lie to your kids about your secrets? Do you lie to anyone to hide your secrets? Do you appreciate when close friends confide deeply in you about their lives? And cleaning out the secrets in the closets of our lives can set us free to be real with everyone. I love personal questions. Have any of your friends or relatives told you they love personal questions? We must never expect our friends to be open and honest with us about their lives if we are not open and honest with them about our lives, our feelings. And if you have a gas cooking stove, get rid of it as soon as possible. Why? Because gas stoves poison the air inside homes. Besides methane, natural gas has 20 hazardous air pollutants. Some children get asthma from gas cooking stoves. Burning gas or propane to cook meals creates dangerous pollution, not just in the kitchen, but in the whole house for hours. One of the poisons is benzene, a highly toxic chemical. Benzene can cause anemia and leukemia. And until you get rid of the gas stove, if it's warm enough, open the windows in your whole house when you're cooking. Turning on one burner of a gas stove causes benzene levels like breathing in cigarette smoke. I stopped cooking my food in 1998, over 26 years ago, because cooking usually destroys most of the nutrients. If we cook any seed on earth, and then plant that seed, it will never grow. The cooked seed is dead. And for the best health, we need raw, living, plant foods. Never microwave food. Microwaving food is even worse for health than regular cooking food. Eat no food that has been microwaved or cooked. I thank you for watching, for listening. I thank Mark and Eddie and Travis for helping me dozens of times running the controls with this program. And if you see me wherever on the street or at some event and you want to talk, I welcome you to talk with me. I love personal questions. To your health, my fresh piss.
Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on.